This city full of freaks. Bro, can you imagine living here?
I hate Gotham. Like, as a citizen, as a person who enjoys comics, it's got a lot to offer, but I would never want to live there. All types of crazy shit going on.
Metropolis.
Right, Metropolis way less freaky than Gotham.
It be getting dealt a more damaging hand. Shit, I'll take that over this shit. I'll take a building falling on me and living through this hell. Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Cinecism. I'm Eric.
It's your boy Dante, man, and today we're going to be doing a throwback review on one of my personal favorite movies, Batman Returns.
I love this movie growing up, first of all. Like, I remember it used to come on, like, TNT and stuff, or those channels back in the day, and I used to watch it every time. For some reason, I don't think we never owned it on VHS, though, and I don't know why. For real? Yeah. I don't know why we didn't.
We rented it all the time, but we never owned it, so that was weird.
That is weird.
Movies you used to rent all the time, but never bought.
Right.
You know, for a very long time, this was my favorite Batman movie.
Oh, same.
Until probably Dark Knight, honestly. I would say that even when Batman Begins came out, I knew it was a better cinematic experience. Oh, yeah. But Batman Returns was still my favorite Batman movie.
These first two films, man, they really kind of define that gothic, the way Batman is today, man, and even Gotham City is today, just the very dark, this eerie vibe to it, man.
Yes. And heavily influenced the animated series.
Oh, directly influenced.
Yeah, right, exactly.
They even use the same theme and everything. So, if nothing else, man, gotta be praised for giving us like one of the greatest animated series of all time.
Absolutely.
Of course, this is a sequel to the 1989 Batman. It's starring again Michael Keaton. You got a few villains in this movie. I guess the primary villain would be the Penguin, played by Danny DeVito. But then you got a regular guy, Max Schreck. He's like the businessman villain. So he kind of like a villain to Bruce Wayne, while Catwoman and Penguin are a villain to Batman. Catwoman kind of, yes, she's a villain in this movie, but she also is romantically involved with both Bruce Wayne and Batman. So that's a whole nother ball of confusion. You got the Penguin, the freak son of these socialites who have since passed, of course, because of his appearance. Like, people looking at him like, ugh. And this was a very different take on Penguin, too. He was born with some, what the fuck? I mean, what's his condition?
Well, unfuckable, I guess.
The problem with the Penguin is
doomed to be single.
He looked crazy and he gross. So
yeah, it ain't just his physical appearance.
Yeah,
it's not like the Hunchback of Notre Dame or something where the nigga had a heart of gold. He himself is a disgusting person. Basically, when you first discovered the Penguin in this movie, like he had joined the circus. After that, he kind of wants to seek power. He wants to become a person that's more in the spotlight. Yeah. But he also has an insidious agenda with regards to Gotham's children, which we'll talk more about as well. That's really his plan.
Sounds so horrible.
I know, but it's so true. It's unfortunate, but that's really his main objective until he meets Max Schreck, who is trying to coerce him to become mayor because Max Schreck has a problem with the current mayor, and you know he wants somebody that he knows in power so he can get this power plant built. It's a lot of just rich, evil fuckery going on in Gotham here, and then in the midst of that, of course, you got Selena Kyle, Catwoman respectively, who works for Max Schreck.
He attempts to casually murder, by the way.
You ain't got no cameras on premises or nothing. Like, you just did a murder and really thought nothing of it.
Walked off.
Wow. She, as a result of that, becomes Catwoman. Ultimately, Bruce Wayne is it's interesting that you bring that up, that whole thing about these being antagonists for both Bruce and Batman, because that's what this movie is a lot about. It's a lot, even with Catwoman, like the two of them kind of parallel in this movie, and you see scenes like that where they're torn between their real identities and then, their costume identities, and they clash a lot in this movie. Things that were happening in their personal life start bleeding over into their costume life, and it's a lot of that going on with those two characters. Very interesting.
I'm gonna tell you, man, this version of Penguin used to like really bother me as a child because he was just so freakish looking, and just it's hard to even explain what I was seeing in my youth when I looked at the Penguin. He was just scary. I guess because of how he looked, how he talked, how he acted, it was just, his whole demeanor just used to bother me, man. This underground world that he was like associated with, that shit was just so damn, it was so bizarre.
Yes.
But it was so intriguing to me always.
Yes.
And Danny DeVito, man, he was amazing. Yeah, this is not a traditional Penguin by any means, but the way he committed to this role and his performance in this movie will always be iconic to me.
He dove in with both feet, as did everyone in this movie, in my personal opinion. But Danny DeVito really transformed, who was also, in my opinion, a very underrated and extremely versatile actor. He had this insidious undertone to him that you just couldn't shake. It was just very weird. And like you said, that coupled with his background and his story, man, this movie like really turned him into a creepy character. Then on top of that, he's funny. He's also kind of charming too in certain scenes. It's weird, man, but he has a lot of dimensions that they gave the Penguin, who's a character that I really feel like is a kind of throwaway Batman villain in a lot of portrayals. You know, he's not one of the top Batman villains that you would probably think of, even though he's one of the most memorable. I think that they don't portray him often like they do the Joker or Two-Face or something like that.
Catwoman?
Yes, indeed. Let's do it.
This was crazy too. You know, she starts off as a very, very normal person, man, until, you know, her attempted murder. She just gets unhinged, and she's like that throughout the rest of the movie. She also brings this charm to her character too, though, even when she's doing crazy shit. Every scene she's in, she just has such a presence and a likability to her. It's fun somehow.
Yes.
All the characters have this darkness to them and this intensity to them, but it's all like in different forms. She has a very wild darkness to her, like Untamed, whereas Penguin is like more sinister. He got more sinister darkness. It's cool to see them work together when they become like an unlikely alliance, and you can really see like the different dynamic between the two of them when they share scenes together. Another iconic performance from Michelle Pfeiffer, man. This was even just her suit design, even though that shit looked uncomfortable as hell, but it looks so dope because it fits so well in this dark, freaky ass world. Like it made sense.
That costume, oh my God. The costume alone, the performance and the costume individually are iconic to me. But them coupled together, man, like I said, this movie just did a lot of merging of really smart choices. It fit this world so perfectly. I don't know the stitch work that they did it, because apparently, you know, in this version, she's supposed to have made that costume out of some makeshift shit in her closet. It looks like that. It looked like a person made this with something in their home who didn't quite know what they were doing. And it's very disjointed too. It's like patched together, almost like her
perfectly symmetrical.
Like her psyche kind of, which I would imagine is kind of the intent, but it's very like shattered. You know, it looks broken almost. And but dog, it's dope as fuck. Her mask, and then you know another cool thing that I realized when I rewatched this, her suit gets fucked up throughout this movie. It never gets repaired. Like it never. She has just one suit, so the damage, because she done fell from height. She done got hit with napalm. It's like when you look at her in the later scenes in the movie, none of that stuff ever gets fixed. It's still this damage that she's carrying around on her suit, like I said, which I think also kind of speaks to the character. She's not healing properly from a lot of this shit. Speaking of her prior to Catwoman, she's almost like laughably generic in the beginning of this movie. She like is almost like out of a romantic comedy, you know, can't catch a date, very awkward, slipping in the office, you know, she's that type of person, soft-spoken. The way that she flips it, man, and becomes this different individual, and then like you said, throughout the rest of the movie, she's just this highly confident, highly sensual being. She's like an animal, like you said, just untamed, very much in line with the cat shit.
You want to talk about Max Schreck?
We could talk about him. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite Christopher Walken roles as well.
Me too.
Listen, man, the thing about Christopher Walken is he bizarre just by nature, I think. Deadpan delivery of lines and humor. It's just, he has a very unique way of talking and just performing. And it's no different here. They all have this like charisma to them, but so he, I guess, represents like the more political evil in this movie.
Yes.
And it's like the way that he goes about performing evil deeds is just so casual though. You know, with Catwoman and Penguin, it's a lot of intent and projection you see through them, but with him, it's just like he just be doing shit and has no regard. He don't even be showing emotion on his face,
Yes.
which is what I think is the most disturbing part.
Absolutely. He's a complete socio and psychopath. He's a combo.
is.
But yeah, man, it's crazy because, and then also you expect them to be villains. We know their character, you know what I'm saying? And then obviously anybody that looks like that, you probably not going to trust. But his villainy is a lot more understated. You know, you don't really know. You know that he's a political villain. Like obviously he's out for power, but you don't know he like a murderer. Once you see him murder Selena, attempt to kill her, you know that all bets is off at that point. But he did such a great job, man. And I loved him working directly with Penguin because he almost like a mentor to him. Penguin's using like his connections with his circus gang to help sway the election in his favor so they can get rid of this new mayor. Like I said, this movie on the surface is pretty basic, but when you actually look at it, it's a lot of real like small intricate plot points going on here.
This version of Batman and any of these characters are pretty much unlike anything we've really ever seen in any other Batman media, man. They are very unique to this particular franchise. Having said that, man, Batman crazy too in this movie. He be out here straight murdering people.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? Did anybody ever question this shit in the 90s? Or we just was like, oh, this shit look cool.
I think we just took it. I never really noticed until I rewatched it. Like, oh, that man on fire. Oh, that man had a bomb on his chest. Like, oh, they're dead. Like, there's no way you survive.
He killing people in this movie and the second movie. Now, in the Schumacher movies, I don't think they ain't kill people in Forever or Batman and Robin. It's like no question about it either. It's like, well, he directly killed them. Like, you can see it happening. It's just crazy to me looking back on it. And I know some people say, oh, well, Batman's killed in the comic before, but Batman in his modern continuity is known for not killing intentionally. You know what I mean? And that's been one of his rules in like modern history. But in his defense, these people, I mean,
you gotta kill them. Like, it was a circus game.
I mean, look how they walking around,
bro. Oh my God.
You can't let them roam the streets.
Yes. Michael Keaton did a great job as well, man. Of course, as he did in the original. You do believe him as this sophisticated billionaire guy, and you know, in these versions, he's sociable, of course, but it's like in his personal life, he just very secluded.
Yeah, you do not get to know him on a personal level in these movies. He's very much a mystery to the people around him and to the audience.
Yeah.
It's like all he do is go out and kill people.
Yeah.
And he don't really be doing shit else.
You know, this movie got so many iconic scenes, man. It's impossible not to talk about some of them. We can start with Catwoman, who I think has some of the most iconic scenes in this movie. But you know what I always thought was cool? How they made her, you know, of course, she's acrobatic anyway, but like she was almost like kung fu sort of based in this movie. It was weird, but I don't know where that came from. She had no history of that, but you know, I never questioned that until I rewatched it. But she becomes like this super acrobatic kung fu artist in this movie. She doing all these like gymnastic flips, and the backflip exit from that alley shit when she was like, "I'm Catwoman, hear me roar," was so unnecessary. But I loved that shit as a kid.
Like
yeah, but I loved it as a kid. I was like, man, that shit was cool as hell. And then of course the one when she in the department store, she backflipped out of that building and turned around.
There was a lot of flipping activity.
Exactly. And then Penguin and Batman was on the street and she was like, meow. And then the building blew up. If you're going to remember anything from this movie, well, you're going to remember a lot because it's very memorable. But the visuals are one of those things that I felt like make this movie. It's like cemented in your brain. Nothing else looks like this shit.
The end scene where Batman take his mask off, which is crazy. And, you know, him and Max and Catwoman are all talking. That's one of my favorite scenes. When Catwoman electrocuted Max. When Penguin gets shot and float off into the sewers, that shit was crazy.
When he rose, like there was blood gushing from his mouth, bro.
Yeah.
And when he rose out of the water to attempt to kill Batman again after Max Shrek died, I was like, oh wow.
It's a dark ass movie.
Yes, very.
And you know,
very.
What's crazy is like we were just so accustomed to that growing up, like in the, late 80s, early 90s, because Tim Burton, we were so familiar with his style. It was some disturbing imagery, but I don't think it ever bothered me as much as it should have, because I had seen Edward Scissorhands and Beetlejuice, so this was just another Tim Burton Burton movie to me at that time. So I think that's why, but you know, when you go revisit it as an adult, you're like, this shit is dark.
Yes.
Some dark shit for kids to be watching.
Absolutely.
Man.
And then the whole aspect, that whole plot point of him trying to kill children. Like, it never really clicked until I rewatched. I was like, yo, he really was trying to kill babies. And you know, kind of going back to what you said, I think being familiar with Tim Burton's style in association with this being a hero movie, because at the end of the day, I'm still looking at it through a Batman lens. Like, it's not supposed to scare me, so I don't think that it ever did.
I mean, we say that as if this is normal Batman shit, but I guess it's like, because it's the Batman we grew up with, it feels like normal Batman shit, but it's not. It's like, this shit crazy.
Absolutely. Bro, the scene where they took over the Batmobile, that's also one of the great ones. Oh my God. Like, this man built a makeshift Batman ride.
Listen, man, that should have never been able to happen. Like, not with somebody like Batman. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it was a cool scene, but that is so fucking far-fetched, man.
And then by circus freaks, not by Lex Luthor or nobody, just by regular circus people who have minimal ingenuity from what we can see. But yeah, that whole shit was cap. That part where, of course, where he had them wings. I had a toy that was similar to that too, man.
I wanted one.
Yeah.
I had like a Batman Forever one, but I always... My favorite suits have always been the Batman and Batman Returns.
Same.
I always preferred the simplistic look with the classic logo on the chest. That's always going to be the best looking suit to me.
Same. Absolutely.
Even though that shit is not functional worth a damn.
No, it's not. You can't do shit in that suit, actually. Yeah, right. That neck mobility is very limited. Going back to what you just said, the visuals in this movie, man, the costume designs, the Batmobile. The first two Tim Burton movies have some of my favorite Batman images in it ever. Like, nothing ever has rivaled this, in my opinion, in terms of his suit or in terms of the vehicles and everything, man. Even like the Penguin stuff with that, it's like that duck. It was so weird to me, but I loved it. Like, where they put like them candy cane wheels
what's that about?
On that duck.
This movie's
vehicle.
So bizarre.
But it's like, it matches. Like you said, it
definitely matches the tone of the film.
Correct.
I don't know what the fuck Penguin doing with that stuff.
Yeah,
but, you know, it worked in the movie. I mean, you know, everything that happens is very much unique to this movie.
Right. It's funny, man, when we talk about Batman now, you know, a lot of people bring up The Dark Knight, which is like the definitive Batman movie that everybody brings up, and it deserves to be. But, you know, in talking about a lot of those Nolan films, I think people kind of forget that these were the blueprints for those movies, and two, just because something newer don't mean it's better. This is my personal opinion. It might be an unpopular opinion. I think these two movies are better than Batman Begins and Dark Knight Rises. That's my opinion. Those Nolan films are more grand in scale, like in terms of like the cinematography, and it's a better cinematic experience. In terms of the characters and the visuals, they just don't have as much personality. That's kind of the trade-off. Mm-hmm. What you gain in these movies is stuff that you will never forget. The characters and the moments they created, coupled with the visuals that you get, it's like cemented in your mind.
Even though the Nolan films are more grounded, it still drew inspiration from these films too. In the third movie with when we meet Selena Kyle and her and Bruce Wayne are like dancing at that ball or whatever, that looked like it was directly ripped from Batman Returns.
Absolutely.
Like, as soon as I saw that scene, that's all I could think about. It was so clearly directly inspired by that. So that was cool to see, man, because the directors and the production team behind the Nolan films clearly respect, you know, the films that came before it too. So I appreciated seeing that.
I guess the last thing I said is that, bro, I didn't know them penguins weren't real.
Oh, they won't?
Dog, it's people in them suits. It's people in penguin suits, man. Some of the penguins are real, but when they carried him, obviously, carried him off into like that whole funeral scene, which is another scene I love.
I'm gonna have to rewatch that,
bro. They think it's a bitch. And
I guess I just assumed it was like, that would take some very detailed animatronics, I guess.
It actually, it's people in suits.
I don't know what I thought.
And when I rewatched it, I said, I don't know what I thought, because it makes makes sense that obviously, you know, even animatronics, unless they had him on some type of dolly or something,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
not going to pull him into the water. Yeah, right, exactly.
I guess I never really thought about it because it was well done, but
very. It's seamless, really. And like I said, they put real penguins in there too, so that's another thing that helped. I think they only really showed the fake penguins when they had to do something a little bit more.
No, them shits was hot, boy.
Bro, and listen to me, man. That's a wild job to get, boy.
Overall, Batman Returns is a very iconic film. I remember watching this numerous times growing up, man, because I just loved the visuals of this movie. It's just very much its own thing. I appreciate it the most for its direct inspiration of the animated series that we got. That theme is iconic, man. It's one of still my favorite themes of all time. The way that they built up this world and the scenery in it and the characters in it will forever be ingrained in my memory, man. I'll always appreciate this interpretation. The actors committing so much to their characters in this movie. For all those reasons, I'm going to give Batman Returns a 8.5 out of 10. Still love this movie to this day. Not only for nostalgia, I've come to appreciate it more so even from a production and visual standpoint.
This movie, for a very long time, very, very long time, was my favorite Batman movie. This and the original, actually. Like, those two movies just define that character for me, man. I think for a lot of people, they really upped the ante from what they did in the original Tim Burton movie. Because, of course, Jack Nicholson was iconic as well. They really dove in there. And I think a big part of that was probably due to that first movie, seeing that you could do a comic book movie seriously and you could be a very respected actor and commit to these characters and they could become iconic. And I'm just so glad that they did. I'm so glad they cared. The music, the visuals, the suits, so many memorable scenes, man. I love this movie, man. I really do. And I still regard it as one of the best Batman movies. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. If by any chance you haven't seen Batman Returns, I would highly encourage you to watch it. And if you have seen it, I would encourage you to rewatch it, man. It's really, really great.
That was our review of the classic Tim Burton film, Batman Returns. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And if you have any suggested reviews you'd like to see us cover here, don't forget to drop a comment below.
Absolutely. And if you guys have seen Batman Returns, please let us know what some of your favorite scenes, what are some of your favorite moments, who are some of your favorite characters, and then also, in terms of the other Batman movies, where do you feel like this one falls? You know, I feel like people don't talk about Batman Returns as much as the original Batman movie. This movie, I feel like doesn't get brought up in conversations much.
I think it will, now that we're going to have Catwoman and Penguin back in the equation. I think we might see some more conversations and see some comparisons, the portrayals and everything. So it'll probably start coming up more.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. We appreciate y'all, man.
Yeah, thank y'all.
All right, peace.